When I was 18 years old, I was on track to join the Navy. So I was really involved in Boy Scouts throughout my teens. It was one of those things that I screwed around in a lot. I didn't really have much of any goals up until I turned 14 years old. A lot of things happened to me, but I was never a good student. My parents, they encouraged me to participate in academia, to try to get good grades, focus, respect, authority, teachers, these kinds of things. But I was never good at it. I think I had ADHD, undiagnosed, I didn't know. To some degree, probably some autism in there as well. But I was horrible at school. I was terrible at school. I was an ED student in elementary school, like a D student in middle school. It wasn't until I got to high school that I was somewhat cognizant of what was going on the piece of paper in front of me. And I started to get, like a C average. I got a 2.7 GPA every quarter of every year of high school, exact same GPA. So at least I started to build some consistency, right? But it wasn't until I joined the Boy Scouts when I was 11, kind of got that experience of camaraderie, of team building. And then when I was 14, I sort of, I didn't really rank up very much through, for those first 3 years. But then I started seeing the accolades that guys were getting when they became an Eagle Scout, right? That sense of accomplishment, that sense of trust, especially from adults, right? Having adults kind of look at a young man and being like, I give this person some degree of credit for their capabilities, right? I'm trusting them with various responsibility. I saw that. And that's something that I'd never seen in my life before. And I decided in that moment that I was going to try to do something, right? I was going to try to become an Eagle Scout. A C average student, never participated for more than a year or two in any sports. 2 years of wrestling was the most commitment I'd ever given, much of anything in terms of sports. Martial arts, I did have a good amount of commitment just in terms of total time, but not really in terms of ranking up or anything. So I saw this, Eagle Scout thing, and I was like, that's something I'm going to try to push for. And in that process, a lot of the mentors that I had were veterans. And there was a lot of incentive in that environment to join the military, right? To create a career, to build something out of yourself. And most of my life, I had wanted to be a pilot. That's the one thing that I was like, that's really interesting. The thrill, the atmosphere all around you, the speed, right? And so I had a mentor later on in my scouting career who was helping me sort of build out that track to go to officer candidate school and join the Navy and become a pilot. And so the process is like this. You start to do the research, you start to physically prepare, but you go to college to get a degree which makes you eligible to go to officer candidate school and enlist as an officer. You're not an enlisted enlisted personnel. You are an officer. It's a whole other class. There's like E1 through 6, I think. And then O, right, which is officer. So enlisted and officer, two different things. It was mostly the pay grade. I was like, I know that there's more pay if I enlist as an officer, and my likelihood of being able to be placed as a pilot is much higher that way. The problem is, if you want to join the military any year in the United States after 1946, and you start by going to college, you're going to find that there is almost no justification to participate in the military. I'm reminded of a quote. This video is because of everything that's going on right now. And what I see in young men, right, I think that this is one of the best services that I can offer the world right now is to have a dialogue with myself if I was 17, 18, 19 years old, right? I'm reminded of a quote by Konstantin Yasnik, I think his name is. And it is, "We the unwilling, led by the unknowing, are tasked with doing the impossible for the ungrateful." And really, in terms of the military, you're tasked with dying for the ungrateful, right? To be led by the unwilling. You are asked to do something that the elites are not willing to do themselves. That's why the rich task the young and the poor with dying on their behalf. Overcoming depression, overcoming a sense of being lost, being purposeless, right? It requires two things. And apologies, this is the ambulance route. I live right next to the ambulance route. It's action and it's purpose. That's what allows you to escape chronic depression and hopelessness, and really a sense of non-commitment to any kind of character, right? Non-commitment to any kind of self-identity. It's action and it's purpose. It's action in the sense that all depression, all of that energetic low is just that. It's an energetic low. It is a physical state, right? Most people are over-intellectualizing their depression, and I'll make another video about this in the future, but most people are over-intellectualizing, right? It's like they feel an energetic low. It's a chronic low for whatever reason. It could be hormonal. It could be your own fucking laziness, just to be honest with you. But the bottom line is you exist in this state of energetic stagnation and you go nowhere. And so your energy remains in a low state. Your human mind, this incredible supercomputer, operates off that energetic state. So you feel like shit all the time. And for whatever reason, you don't do anything to raise that energy, which is what you really need to do. Now, the other side of that is purpose. If you don't have any convictions, and don't let the fucking a hyper-intellectual woke mob, I'm a woke myself, but a lot of this hyper-intellectual race to victimization bullshit is creating a real lack of purpose, purposefulness, a real lack of agency within yourself. Not allowing you to have to face the music that you can change. And you change by creating convictions. They're so afraid of convictions, especially like hyper anarchist types, but we'll get into that. Again, I'm a woke lefty myself, so it's like, but I do have a lot of that classic kind of masculine, you gotta get up and make change. But it's both. The point of this video is that when you do not have convictions, when you are addicted to the idea of a purer world because you yourself are unwilling to create the purity within, and you demand the rest of the world make change, you are betting on a future that demands a lot of unnecessary bloodshed, a lot of unnecessary persecution, because you are too pathetic to change yourself, to live the pure ideals that you demand the rest of the world conform to. You are not willing to do the work. And in a state of the world that we exist in right now, where governments, not even governments, single insecure, scared men that would otherwise be on the verge of prosecution for their own crimes seek any and all ways to stay in power. One of the ways is war. The main way is war. And so they search for falsehoods, for illusions, to convince the purposeless, the undisciplined, that there is some glory in dying for a made-up cause. especially in the United States, we have been convinced that veterans deserve respect beyond any question. And yet, the vast majority of us wholly acknowledge that there has been no just armed conflict carried out by us since 1946. Vietnam was built on a dogmatic, disgusting lie that somehow communism is a danger that is worth flying across the world to an obscure backwater country to murder millions of people, to have 55,000 of our own brothers and sisters die for nothing, to then carry that out again in Nicaragua, in Panama, in Cuba. I mean, a lot of these conflicts were before Vietnam, but many of you probably grew up in the era, or at least towards the end of the Iraq-Afghanistan era, where thousands of your brothers and sisters died for nothing, for a lie, for a false narrative of freedom for a population that does not want that idea of freedom. That's what liberalism is. Nobody really defines liberal correctly. They're like, oh, you're a liberal. It's like, well, the reality is anybody that throws around the word liberal is probably a liberal themselves. Liberal just means that you spread democracy by force to the unwilling. You may be asked to do it again soon. That is the point of this video. The point of this video is that bravery is not in getting wrapped up in the zealotry, the fanaticism of righteous war, because it's cool in your mind, because death is cool, because big guns and big tanks is cool in your mind. That shit is stupid, brother. That shit is cool when there is a demagogue who is leading an imperialist conflict to rebuild the empires of lost because of some white supremacist ideal, because of some collectivist ideal, some bullshit ass populist fever dream. Then it's cool to get your people together and say, we are not going back. We were on the right side of history in the 1940s to defeat the disgusting ideology of Adolf Hitler. But right now, that ideology is more aligned with the institutions than it is who the institutions are trying to convince you to lay your life down for. It is more patriotic to go to prison. If you are asked to die on the other side of the planet for a war that doesn't have anything to do with the defense of your democracy, of your people, your community, it is patriotic to go to jail, to hang up your boots and say, I'm not doing this. Send me to jail and do whatever with me there. But the reality is, in 2025, the creature comforts of prison, yes, I said it, the creature comforts of prison is nothing, right, compared to the suffering of realizing that you are ending the lives of innocent people because you weren't fucking brave enough to ask yourself some difficult questions. And so, to the young men, to the guys my age, to the guys slightly older who still dream of an America that is really built on freedom, that is really built on justice, just know that if you are asked to do what so many thousands of our brothers and sisters were asked to do generations before us, they weren't fucking brave enough. That's the bottom line. That they thought that they were doing something good, and I do believe they deserve respect for trying to do something that they genuinely thought was the right thing, because in their mind they really were doing what they were called on to do, to defend America, to defend freedom. But they weren't actually doing that. And I have a lot of respect for veterans. I have a lot of respect for those who serve, but I chose not to serve because I love my country. I chose not to join the armed services because I knew what they were doing was a disservice to this country. And if in the next few months you are asked to do the same thing, to go to some other country because some other little country that's trying to perpetuate their own bullshit ass narrative of fascism, guised in democracy and freedom and frankly the will of God, which is the most, that's the canary in the coal mine. Anytime anybody tells you that you must die for the will of God, that person is a blasphemer. That person is guiding you on a shoestring to hell. Don't go with them. Don't give up your autonomy, your fucking dignity, because somebody demanded you do something that is so out of alignment with what is the good and obvious truth. That's not freedom. That's not justice. That's not righteous. That's not defending America or whatever country you're from. Even if you live in a country that is the one carrying out the narrative, is the aggressor. And this country that I am so obviously speaking about already has a draft. And look how many feckless fucking lemmings sign up to do that with no question. The truly brave are the ones that say, no, I'll be right here. And if by force you will put me in a prison cell, so be it. You are lucky to live in a country, any of these countries, you are lucky to live in a country that has some degree of a justice system that will not let you die in vain in that prison cell. You'll be okay. And more than that, you will exist knowing that you did the right thing. That you sat on the sidelines when it was the right thing to do to sit on the sidelines. Saying no is the right thing to do. Say no for your body. Say no for your mind, for your dignity. Say no to be an inspiration to your community, to your fellow American, to your fellow Englishman, to your whoever it is, to your people. Say no for them. Be that example that it's okay to take a step back and not enter this fray to murder innocent people because of some, hyped up story that wasn't true. And in the moment, it's so obviously not true. Everyone knew that Saddam Hussein did not have weapons of mass destruction. There was no evidence. Maybe it's not as obvious in 2001 when you don't have crazy AI satellite technology every which way to give you absolute real-time feedback on everything that's happening. I'm willing to give those people a pass, and I have many, many friends who served in those conflicts, and I get it. And I don't hate those people, but I'm not willing to look at those people and say, you were really brave. I don't think that you were super brave. I think more than anything, you were gassed up on narratives, and you could have done better. And I'm proud of you for rising to an occasion to do what you thought was the right thing. I'm disappointed in you for doing what was truly a stain on our country's history. If you are asked to go to war on behalf of the elite, rich, imperialist class who does not care about the bodies of the working class, say no. Be brave. That's all I got. Take it easy. Adios.